are talking Hellbender. The name refers to what these witches call themselves, Hellbenders, in this movie's universe. And this is essentially a horror coming-of-age movie. It focuses on two women, a young teenager called Izzy and her mother. Now they live out in the wilderness somewhere in isolation, and her mother is very aware that they don't want to kind of come across anyone from the outside world, or especially come in contact with her daughter. Now she initially tells her daughter it's because she has some type of rare disease, trying to keep her sort of hidden from the real truth. But as it turns out, we learn that her family is actually a line of very powerful witches, and the magic that they have kind of inherited, so to speak, comes from consuming living matter when it's afraid. So you can kind of see where the problem might lie here. And you know, as the movie goes on, it's essentially the relationship between Izzy and her mother, and how, you know, Izzy is coming to the age where she kind of wants to kind of strike out on her own and kind of do her own thing, and can she overcome kind of darker impulses, the lust for power, all these kind of stuff. So what'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss Hellbender. So this is a slow burn movie and is absolutely a kind of a character piece. And although it doesn't have particularly kind of like scares in the typical sense, it's not really jump scares, there's not really kind of creepy moments, I think there's an idea here that there's an underlying power that is all-consuming, which is kind of the most kind of frightening thing. And it's the old adage, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and obviously people having to kind of, when they're exposed to such power, what effect it might have on them. And you kind of understand why the mother may well want to keep Izzy from kind of coming in contact with kind of the outside world. So there's a lot of kind of themes about kind of that kind of stuff, the relationship between sort of two characters. And I've got to say, I think the actual the two kind of main actresses here do a fantastic job of this kind of relationship, of this bond. I thought the acting was superb. You got a good sense of kind of who these kind of characters are. And I have to say that I think when you do have the kind of the special effects experiments, and there are some quite impressive and unique and visually interesting depictions of kind of magic on screen here, down from some stuff which I think would be quite, you know, they didn't have to do it, if that makes sense. For example, there's like a hidden room upstairs, and the way they kind of get into it is they put their hand over this kind of like sigil, and the key kind of pops through the hand and things like that. It's a neat effect, which they didn't really have to do, but it kind of adds this, you know, this truly kind of like otherworldly kind of feeling to the proceedings. So we know that these characters are supremely kind of powerful and things like this. Now the character of Izzy certainly does go through an arc. The story is kind of quite slight, which we'll come on to, but certainly the character of Izzy goes through quite a significant arc throughout the movie. She kind of does meet a couple of people from the outside world, in particular this one girl called Amber, who is kind of like her neighbour, who she kind of strikes up somewhat of a kind of a friendship with, which I thought was kind of quite good. And you know, it's overall has a quite a distinctive visual style. It's certainly, I would say, borders on one of these kind of like art house horror movies. There's scenes here which I feel are a little bit kind of you know, go into the kind of the art house sort of territory, but it doesn't kind of it doesn't go as far as style over substance. I feel the plot here is, you know, easy to follow, and it's not kind of overrun with just visual kind of stylistic choices that make it kind of you know, just style over substance. It does still have, I think, putting the characters and stories first, which is, I think, is the most important thing. The story is relatively slight, and I have to say it was fairly obvious, but nonetheless it's still an interesting kind of story as it goes, which kind of leads me maybe to what doesn't work here. I think it's fairly obvious where the kind of the story is going, and I don't think it really has much in the way of kind of surprises in there. It kind of plays out more or less exactly like you think it's going to, and I have to say, I don't know if the ending was particularly, they quite stuck the landing on the ending. Although the ending seems a little bit kind of crowbarred in to a certain degree. It wasn't quite as strong as maybe you know, as it could have been. And I have to say as well, although I quite like the characterization here, the character of the mother seems a little bit naive at times, because at first, you know, we learn she's, you know, she's very old, but obviously looks younger, and you would have thought she would be quite wise to certain things. But I have to say, there's times here, particularly kind of in the latter half of the movie, when I felt her character was somewhat naive, and I don't know if I was by that she would be that naive. Anyway, overall though, it's certainly an interesting movie with some kind of interesting visuals, some great character work, both from the acting and the kind of the writing perspective. Overall, I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. It was pretty decent, if you ask me, but it's not like a, you know, it's a slower burn movie. If you want kind of more of a twists and turns and, you know, lots of kind of stuff happening on the screen, maybe not for everyone, but certainly for those of you who enjoy good characters and, you know, well-produced films, it's well worth a look. 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.